At this point, you may be asking, as you already have, how did we know that attendance rate was increased because of the program? And the answer to this important question is, we really don't know for sure if we're only looking at the numbers, so we need to look at more. To help us understand how and why we're seeing the numerical evaluation results, we need to gather and use qualitative data also. Qualitative data are usually verbal data collected through interviews with stakeholders. It helps us to understand the context of the evaluation setting. Sometimes we find that the qualitative data support the numbers that we see. And sometimes we see that the qualitative data gathered give insight to issues occurring that could not be fully understood with the numbers alone. Sometimes the qualitative data conflicts with the numbers we're seeing. In any event, this qualitative information helps us to understand the context behind the numbers we're seeing. So for our example that we just looked at with the attendance rate and how attendance rate increased over time, the evaluation team conducted focus group interviews. We talked to small groups of teachers and administrators in the school. We showed them that same quantitative results figure, and we asked them, why do you believe attendance rate increased in your school from before the grant was implemented? And how do you think that the programming may have impacted student attendance? Remember, our qualitative questions usually ask how or why. What we found from our qualitative focus group interviews, teachers and administrators were very surprised to see that their results had improved so much. They didn't think that their student attendance rate had actually increased that much. Part of the reason they didn't think it had improved so much was they told us that the state had changed the attendance rate reporting policy. And this policy change had a very positive impact on attendance rate. So right now we know that the increase is not just because of our program. The focus group interviews also told us information about the school attendance faculty. Teachers and administrators said this is a very difficult job. They were very open and honest with us and told us no one likes doing this. They also felt that they had had some very poor attendance secretaries in the past. So they felt that the results were maybe a little suspect. Sometimes when we go in and ask these questions, we don't necessarily like what we hear, but it does help us to understand what's going on better. So finally, these teachers and administrators talked about the program that the federal government was funding them for. They said that because of the program, the teachers were showing more interest in student attendance rate, and they were doing things like calling parents at home to say, your child isn't here today, where are they? And they were also sending notes home to show that they cared. They also were using money from the program to provide incentives or field trips for students. And the only way you could attend these programs was by having a high attendance rate. So they believed that this also helped to improve student attendance. So now, after we have the numerical and the qualitative data, we needed to come up with new recommendations. First, with regard to attendance rate reporting policy, we told them if any policies change, you really need to let us know so we can assess the impact of this policy right when it happens on our measures. We also suggested that the school administration needed to investigate the school level attendance reporting further. They needed to find a more reliable way of measuring and reporting this outcome. After the numerical findings recommendation, we said they should continue doing what they were doing, but we weren't specific. Now that we understand the context better, we're able to be more specific. In your packet, there are 4 different scenarios. I'm going to talk through the first scenario just a little bit to give you an understanding of what's happening here. So we're looking at a program that I evaluated, and this deals specifically with student achievement. So we were trying to raise students' standardized math and reading test scores. And we're talking about 7th and 8th grade students, which in the United States, 7th grade is 12 and 13-year-olds, and 8th grade is 13, 14-year-olds. So on every scenario, you'll see a figure that looks similar to this, and what we're looking at is the percentage of students that are proficient or better, either in math or reading, depending on the scenario. This shows us the proficiency level. The first bar is when there was no program in the school. So this is our baseline. The 3 bars after show us the percent proficient for 3 years after the program had been implemented.
Musimy oczywiście dać szansę tłumaczowi. Zapraszamy tak, żebyśmy się wszyscy słyszeli, widzieli.
Wdrażanie programu poprawy jakości z matematyki w tej szkole na podstawie samych słupków. Ten program przynosi efekt, ale znikomy, niewystarczający. Około 10 punktów procentowych. Odpowiedź na pierwsze pytanie tak, ale za mało. Pytanie drugie. Czy na podstawie danych liczbowych kontynuowalibyśmy ten program? Wydaje się, że nie. Raczej należy wstrzymać program lub zmodyfikować, żeby osiągać lepsze efekty. To te pierwsze 2 pytania. Czy kontynuujemy od razu drugą część?
W pytaniu trzecim już mamy wgląd na dane również jakościowe i w grupie zgodziliśmy się, że tak, program przynosi efekty, w wynikach uczniów znikome, ale tak jak powiedzieliśmy, za mało. Ale zauważyliśmy również pewne efekty i w grupach respondentów, tak, czyli że nauczyciele zauważają te różnice, jak ich to wspiera, ale nie było to tematem pytania. W skali mikro, tak, program przynosi efekty. Jeżeli patrzymy na to trochę z punktu widzenia rządu, to nie do końca.